Retro.
Yeah.
Electro. Tech.
Oh yeah.
Hey, turn the lights back on. Wow. Retro Electro Tech. When real audio ruled the world.
Well, hello there everyone. This is Retro Ernest of Retro Electro Tech. And today on the bench we have a Panasonic SL-H304. In geek speak that would be Sierra Lima Hotel 304. So this is a garden variety, run-of-the-mill, economy, entry-level, turntable, whatever you want to call it, which is just fine. It will do the job of dropping the needle on the vinyl and making it final so you could listen to your tunes and shake your groove thing. So other than that, this unit came to me because the customer wants me to go through it and just refurbish things. He wants a good, solid working unit. And these Panasonic Technics, tomato, turntables of the era were good, solid performers. Okay, they're pretty reliable. So it worked just fine as far as platter rotation, and the tone arm was auto returning a little bit sluggishly, but not a big deal. I'll get that all resolved. So this is a semi-automatic turntable, meaning that when it reaches end of play, the lead out grooves, it will lift, return, set down, and that's it. That's all she wrote. So otherwise, let me just quickly pan around. Not much panning to do, but anyways, that's it in a nutshell. This stop button here will interrupt the tone arm mid-flight and return it to its rest position, and there you have that. Speed buttons here, 33 and 45, they're a bit on the sluggish side, but that's okay. I'll get that all resolved when I'm cleaning things up in here. Anti-skating adjustment, counterweight, the cueing lever. You can see the tone arm lifting just fine, lowering just fine. Okay, lifting, lowering. All right, great. And the tone arm, it pivots just fine. There's no obstruction. It's moving freely. So I'm not going to have to get into the tone arm base or anything, do any work in there. Like I said, the cueing lever is fine, so that's good. Don't have to mess around with that. So like I said, the tone arm was returning a bit sluggishly. When I removed the bottom cover, I found that the main cam is a bit gunked up with degraded grease. The grease was pretty sticky to the touch. So I'm going to pull the mechanism plate, the main plate, and clean up some levers, the main cam gear and all that, get that all squeaky clean. And everything should be good to go there mechanically. As far as the cartridge and stylus, yeah, there is a cartridge on board. I don't know what the health of it is. I'm going to check it as I move in that direction, ohm out the coils, make sure the coils are looking good on the cartridge. And as far as the stylus, if I just touch under here carefully, yeah, there's definitely a needle. It's present. It doesn't feel like it's worn down to a nub. I haven't checked, looked at it under any magnification or anything, but whatever. If it looks okay when I check it out in a little while and the cartridge ohms out okay, then I think we're good to go there. If I need to order a stylus, whatever, then I'll cross that bridge when the time comes. I don't think so. I could tell that it's definitely got some meat on it. So we'll see though when I test everything. But yeah, other than that, I think this will be fairly straightforward. The only other thing I'm going to need to do is these on the dust cover. This is a customer's dust cover, and I'm going to clean everything up on this turntable. He asked me if I could do that for him, but anyways, these tabs here, these hinge tabs, this one here is busted off. So, which is common with these. That happens all the time. So I have a donor unit. The dust cover itself is cracked pretty bad, but it's got good hinge tabs. So I'm going to transplant a hinge tab off of that onto this customer's dust cover So anyways, let me go ahead and flip it over and get into the mechanism and start working on that. So here's the mechanism plate. Let me go ahead and start removing all of these screws, okay? And carefully lift this out and gain access to, you know, the cam and the various levers. Alrighty, here's the flip side of the mechanism plate. Our main cam, our different levers here. I'm going to strip these off, get them cleaned, re-grease them, and then get this back together. Alright, so I'm going to get this track on the cam gear cleaned of the grease. So let me get underway here. So I'm just going to fix me up a big old swab here so I could really get into that track and clean it out. So like I was saying in another video, I just use these skewers and cotton balls and just make up my own swabs so I could get a little bit more reach sometimes and cover more surface area than the little tiny Q-tips will cover. You can see it got off a lot of the nastiness, but let me get that out of there. There we go. Get a little bit smaller of a swab made up. So yeah, just these skewers, I split them down the middle so that I can tuck some cotton in there and roll them up. Nothing groundbreaking, of course, but hey, sometimes these little tips help people out, I guess. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I don't know. Yeah, that's getting it pretty good now. I'm down in there. I'm in it to win it. So now I'll just finish up with a regular old cotton swab. I think that'll be fine now. I just didn't want to sit there all day with the little Q-tip trying to get all that grease out of there, because that track is pretty deep and there was a lot of grease in there, so you get the point. And then over here they used a pretty thick grease. This is a grease that's really gummy, really thick and gummy. So yeah, so you get the point. I'm going to get all this finished up, cleaned, and be right back. Okay, so all that old grease is cleaned out from the main cam. Now, one thing I want to mention is that that black grease that I was pulling out really wasn't in horrible shape. Okay, it's just that there was some other grease that was smeared on the outer portion of this cam gear that was in bad shape, that was very sticky. But I wanted to clean out this track anyways, you know, clean out the hub, clean this cam spindle, and get everything working really smooth when it comes to the cam. Okay, so that's all squared away. Now, this metal slide over here, this main slide, utilizes that black grease, but you can see how smooth this slide is operating. I'm barely moving it, and it's sliding all around. Okay, so that black grease is not degraded on this mechanism here to the point where it's hindering, you know, the normal travel of this slide. And like I said, that black grease even in the cam wasn't that bad, so, but I wanted to clean it out. So anyways, but on this mechanism, this metal on metal, I'm going to leave it. And also I'm assessing, you know, the other levers and so forth, and everything is moving freely, okay? Yeah, everything is nice. Mainly just that cam gear and this spindle here. So what I'm going to use in place of what was there is I'm going to use something, it's a Dow Corning product, EM30L. That's EM as in Echo, Mike, 30, and then L, Lima. and it's a synthetic polyolefin lubricant. It's got the thickness, consistency of like mayonnaise. So it's not real thick, it's not going to bog anything down. And I'm going to use it in this track in here, okay? And sometimes interchangeably, it depends on what type of plastics I'm dealing with. But these type of plastics and these turntables, this era of turntable and all that, the bigger, kind of thicker plastics do okay even with like white lithium grease. I know some people will freak out about that, but I know what works. I'm not a chemist, but I've been around enough to know what works, and white lithium grease doesn't attack this plastic and cause it to become all brittle or get all soft and break apart and fall into pieces and all that stuff. There's other factors that can contribute that. I'm not going to get into a big discourse on that, but I do know white lithium grease on most consumer plastics, these type of plastics, are just fine. So yeah, but anyways, to each his own. Use what you want to use, really. I don't care. But yeah. So, but anyways, in here, like I said, I'm going to use the EM30L, and it is a plastic safe lubricant. That's pretty much what it's made for. But mainly I like the consistency of it and the viscosity of it. So, especially in this application within this track and all that. So anyways, let me go ahead and get that squared away. Let me get this main cam re-lubed and reinstalled, and I'll check a few other things. I am going to remove the spindle and take care of that as well. Okay, so I cleaned up the spindle assembly over here, and there was a lot of nastiness, of course, that was in there, old grease and all that. But anyways, so the hub and the spindle are all cleaned up. The only thing is the spindle gear has a split right down the middle, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this thing epoxied back together. We'll see. I just don't know yet. I might also have another table in here that I could source the gear off of. I'll have to scavenge around and see if I could find something, or if there's something out there on the market floating around. I don't know. But I could try, like I said, using some 2-part epoxy and use something super, super strong. But I have a feeling though, when I try to stick it back in place, I have a feeling it's going to split open again. But I'll try a repair first. It's worth a try. And if that holds, it looks like it's going to hold good, then great. But if not, well, I'm just going to have to try to source one, which is going to delay things, of course. I was hoping to get this wrapped up today, but... Okay, so here's a nice garden variety, everyday looking shot of some vice grip type pliers, giving me a little bit of pressure on this spindle gear, and that's really all it's doing. It's just pressure. It's just holding things together a little bit better on that side that's split that I glued. The epoxy has a 24-hour cure time. I have my doubts as to whether or not this is going to work. I think not. Anyways, it is what it is. I also have a part on order. I'm pretty sure it was the same gear, but anyways, I ordered one. It should be here. And okay, so I ended up seating the spindle gear into position. It's not holding anymore because, yeah, as you might have guessed, it didn't hold. The joint gave way during the process of trying to seat the gear into position because of the little change in the girth or circumference of that base area that this gear kind of pops onto. So that's what it feels like. It kind of pops on, and it won't really hold anymore. If I push down on it, it'll just slip past that base because it's split open. So anyways, not much I can do about that, but I just wanted to mention that. So hopefully the gear that I receive will be the correct one. I'm pretty sure it is. And anyways, I'm going to end that part here. So I'll be back when the new gear is on board and whatever, but now I'm going to divert over to some of these controls over here. Okay, so you might be saying to yourself, what are we looking at? Well, actually, let me go ahead and raise the tripod a little bit. Okay, so this shot might not be of the greatest quality. I don't know what the reflections are doing to the exposure, really. I'm kind of glancing at the back of the camera once in a while to see if I'm in frame, but so we're looking at the speed control switch, okay? So there's just a set of contacts, and anyways, this is a circuit board back here that's involved in the control regulation of speed. So there's that control board, but this is the switching mechanism here with the contacts. And anyways, let me give this a little bit of a tilt here. I think we'll be okay. Yeah, just fine. So these are the switches on, of course, operated from the top side. These are the switches here, and they're kind of damped by some grease. So the grease has become really sticky, and that's what I was saying earlier, that they felt like they were sticky. And sure enough, I mean, it's degraded grease. I suspected it would be. And you can see that this switching mechanism here also utilizes a smear of grease, which has become, you can even tell just by looking at it that it just has that look where it's really sticky, degraded, and it's become very viscous, very thick. But anyways, I'm gonna clean that up and apply some new grease. I'm gonna clean these switch contacts, and for that I'm just gonna end up just sandwiching a piece of really fine grit, like 1000 grit sandpaper, wetted down with 99.9% anhydrous alcohol, okay, or just use a good high grade, high strength alcohol with low water content. And anyways, I'll just slip that in there and just kind of clean those contacts, with just a little strip of sandpaper. Just fold up a strip so you have both sides, and wet it down with alcohol and just slip it in there and clean those contacts good. And like I said, replace all this old grease, and the old grease on the caps, and yeah, back in business. No problem at all. So anyways, let me move on to the other. Okay, so nothing exciting going on here, but I figured I would point out this mechanism here. And yeah, that said, it's just a stop switch. So that's what we're looking at, which consists of a little bit of a pivoting action and lever action. You have the rod here, this linkage that leads over to, let me just pan this up a little bit, pardon the jumpiness. So over here, just right underneath here, there's another lever that this rod bumps and activates. So essentially it's just a trip mechanism. We're just tripping the mechanism and activating the tone arm, causing it to lift and return over to its rest position, and there you go. So nothing exciting, like I said, but I figured I would just explain what I'm doing. And in regard to this switch and, again, the other one over here that I just pointed out, it's a matter of getting these just all cleaned up and then re-greased, and that's about it. Okay, so the controls are cleaned up and re-greased. So let me go ahead and get the spindle and gear mounted topside. Obviously it's arrived, so yeah, let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so nothing too exciting to see, but there's the spindle reinstalled into the hub, and that's really about it. Of course, with the new gear on it, so a few drops or so of oil down in the platter hub, or excuse me, the spindle hub, before I drop the spindle down in there. And then a little bit of oil around the spindle shaft itself. I just smeared a little bit on there and then just drop that down into the hub, like I said, the spindle that is. Everything's looking good. And over here, got the shaft, the motor shaft all cleaned up, and like I said, it's rotating nice and free, and I went ahead and put a drop of some sewing machine oil, just a little drop on the shaft there. Cleaned up the surface of the belt pulley, of course, the pulley surface here. Got all that nice and clean. Okay, so there won't be any slippage or any crappy residue left over. And I got a new belt or replacement belt put on the platter, as you can see here. Okay, here we are with the platter on. Let me go ahead and raise the tone arm, get the cueing lever up and swing it over. Make sure we have power on. We do, obviously. Platter rotation. We have our speed set to 33. That's about right. 45, it speeds up there. Back to 33. Yeah, looking pretty good. Also too, make sure that I have auto return, that's doing okay. Yeah, that just engaged. Let me make sure the tone arm sets down and shuts off. Yeah, the platter shuts off, everything shuts off. Okay, good. Yeah, everything's looking good. I think that all I need to do now is talk about the last phase of what I'm doing. Oh, and also too, before that, I just want to mention that yes, I did just off camera real quick ohm out the cartridge. Okay, and it's working. It's working fine. Like I said, there is enough meat left on the stylus that's going to be okay for a while. The cartridge is, like I said, ohming out okay. So when I get into the final audio testing, you'll see that everything works and all that. So whatever, it's going to do just fine. So let me go ahead and move on. Okay, let me explain what I'm doing here. I mentioned that I have a dust cover that has a broken hinge tab. Okay, this was the original hinge tab here. I don't know if you can see that, but this is the original hinge tab. This is the new one, the replacement. So the original hinge tab was, broken off. It extended out here, it busted off, whatever. Okay, so that was removed from the keeper dust cover, okay, which is this one here. This is the donor, all right. It's a shorter cover, but same thing as far as the same tab type hinges and all that. So I cut off the donor tab hinge that I'm going to be using. This one here. I cut it off from down here. All right, just buzz that off. And actually, you see the Dremel tool in here. I didn't use a Dremel tool to cut that off. I was a little bit more careful in that I used a hacksaw blade. I just had a hacksaw blade nearby, so I just grabbed that. You can use other things. There's those little jeweler's saws and all that stuff. And yeah, more than one way to skin a cat, as I always say. So I just used the hacksaw blade, just right up against the cut. And just work my way through nice and slow, little by little, and just boom, cut off the old hinge tab, the new hinge tab from the bottom. This is going to replace this area here. Okay, so when that's all done, great. I'm going to clamp everything in place. I saved a little bit of this down here. You can probably see I saved a little bit of this plastic dust, some of the plastic shavings when I was cutting the old tab off, or the old tabs. I used a little bit of this dust. I have it off to the side here. I'm going to grind it down a little bit finer, and I'm going to use it in the glue to just improve the structure of things a little bit. So once everything's all nice and dry, I'm going to clamp everything up real nice once I get everything set. Okay, so for a few measurements, this is just going to be a basic setup. I mention this once in a while, so I'm not going to get into all kinds of details. All I'm concerned with when I'm going through a basic setup is whether or not there's too much weight or not enough around the head shell. Okay, so if the cartridge stylus combo is sitting in the record groove too heavy, we don't want that. We want to adjust that counterweight, get everything dialed in so that the downward force in the record groove is where the manufacturer calls for it. In this case, they want 2.5 grams. And I tweaked around with it a little bit off camera, just real quick. It wasn't far off at all, and got it set to right about there. So the scale here, I'm just setting the needle of the cartridge right down on that dot, that black dot on the center of the scale. I'm just setting the needle down right on that, and I'm going to weigh my total weight in grams here. And I'm at about 246. Good enough. No problem there. The next thing is we want the cartridge, okay, the cartridge here, we want it riding in the groove nice and straight. We don't want it riding at a funky angle like that. So our protractor, in just doing a really fast, down and dirty basic setup, can get us there really quick and just give us a quick look at the angle of the cartridge, okay? So right off the bat, when I'm just doing a basic setup and I just want to get through it fast, and again, weigh the cartridge in the stylus, set it real quick, set the counterweight, drop it down, make sure I'm right on the ballpark, get that done out of the way. Then I want to move this over here. The protractor has a couple null points on it, a couple dots, one here and one here. So just make note of that. So I'm just going to be placing the tip of the needle onto one of those null points too. I'm going to use this one down here first. And just set the needle right on that null point. And what that does is it allows me to compare the front of the cartridge with some of these lines running down the length of the protractor. Okay, they run parallel across the front of the cartridge face, right across the front. Okay, so you can see whether or not these lines, the line closest to the face of the cartridge is running parallel with the face of that cartridge to show that everything is nice and straight. That's ultimately what we're trying to do. And you can also use the other lines around the cartridge, because you have lines running all around the cartridge so that you can help to visually box the cartridge in when you're measuring everything out to make sure everything is square. That'll help you out. So the same thing, you want to check over at this other null point over here. So you check at both null points. And yeah, the front of the cartridge is looking good over this one too. It's right in line, smack dab parallel with the line in front of it. It was pretty much the same thing over here on this other null point. When I set the needle down on this other null point, it was pretty much smack dab even with the line in front of it, and that's what we want. So that tells me that my yaw angle is nice and straight instead of off. Okay? And another thing I'm looking at when I have the cartridge set down on the protractor is I'm looking at the roll angle. Okay, I want to make sure I don't have any roll that shouldn't be there. So just by kind of crouching down a little bit and looking at the front, I could see that the bottom front and even around the sides here, that everything looks nice and straight. It doesn't look like it's off, like there's some unusual roll going on. So the roll angle is looking good. Now on this cartridge, if it wasn't, I would have to use some shims and all that to get the roll angle tweaked. But usually from the factory, the roll angle on these are pretty good. Sometimes you have to tweak the yaw angle, again, that I was talking about a moment ago. You have to tweak that a little bit. On tone arms with minimal adjustment, yeah, you are pretty limited to, like I said, just yaw angle. Make sure that your weight, your tracking force, your downward force in the record groove is set. And sometimes if you need to set the roll angle, with some shims or something, you can do it, but it's kind of a pain in the butt as far as time consuming and getting everything tweaked just so. So real quick off the bat, this is all I'm doing. I just want to check the basic angles of the cartridge, the downward force, the weight, and make sure everything is looking good. And it is. Okay, and of course, as you know, when you're using your turntable, and as well as when you're doing certain adjustments and you're using it and you have it set up, make sure that your turntable is leveled out. Okay, this is all leveled out, everything is good. So that's about it. Oh, and as far as the anti-skating goes, same thing over here with the anti-skating. Now I set my downward tracking force to 2.5 grams. Just set your anti-skating to about 2.5, and you'll be fine. They're usually on par with each other. If the anti-skating is working fine, then on this type of a table, then just set it on par with your tracking force, and you're good to go. Okay, so everything is wrapped up. And all I did to set the speed was there's a couple of VRs, variable resistors, that you can rotate and adjust. I'll point them out here. I'll bring the board into view and point them out in a photo here. But yeah, you just adjust the VRs. VR1 for 33 1/3, VR2 for 45, I do believe. So that's about it. So speed is all adjusted. What I'm going to do right now is I'm not going to do a proper audio test with the turntable hooked up to the shop amplifier and system and all that. What I'm going to use is just to show that the right and left channels are working is just my little mini amplifier that I use when I'm going through and signal tracing equipment here in the shop. I'll use this little mini amp sometimes when I'm tracing out audio signals. So I just have that hooked up to the turntable, and that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop the needle on the vinyl. You get an idea that this thing is working good. Okay, let me turn it up. Okay, so that's doing good. I've got to adjust the cueing lever a little bit. It's up too high, but that's just a quick adjustment, no big deal. But otherwise, yeah, everything is working like it should. Let me go ahead and put a 45 on real quick. All right. Alright, let's see here. Some Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show. Oop, let me get the right speed would help.
Don't touch me. Hey, Ray. Hey, Sugar. Tell them who we are. Well, we're big rock singers. We got golden fingers.
Okay, so good enough there. Let me just hit stop and send it back home. Alright, and it'll just set there and shut off. Alright, looking good. Alright, and as I said I was going to do is get this new tab adhered onto the right over here. The new tab is adhered onto the dust cover. It came out okay, all things considering. It was a little bit scuffed up in that area to begin with, but that's okay. I wasn't going for perfect cosmetic restoration, just getting a new tab on a dust cover. Got the dust cover cleaned up pretty decent, all things considered. And yeah, this replacement tab seemed to glue on there really good, really strong. It appears that way anyways. I don't think it's going to pop off if the customer's careful with it. But yeah, these dust covers are notorious for that. They break tabs all the time and all that. Nothing new there. So that's about it. Anyways, everything's done, guys. And as I always say, peace, love, music, and the vintage audio that brings it to your ears. Till next time, y'all take care.
This has been a Spinning Head production.